As it worries about Russian troops gathered on its border, Ukraine is also facing a possible cyber war. The country saw a high-volume cyber attack Tuesday that temporarily blocked access to the websites of its defense agencies and banks. One government minister called it the largest such attack in the country's history. Ukrainian officials says that it's too early to know who exactly is responsible, but the U.S. government, which is helping investigate, suggests Moscow is uniquely suited to carry out this kind of massive attack. I want to talk about this now with George Kurtz, the CEO of Crowdstrike, a global cybersecurity firm. So, George, what does the evidence point to here when you look at this cybersecurity attack in Ukraine? What does the evidence point to in terms of who is responsible?
Well, when you look at denial of service attacks, particularly this large distributed denial of service attacks, many cases they're hard to attribute, but I think all signs point to Russia, specifically given the conflict. You know, when you think about what's been done in the past in 2015, knocking out the electric grid, and you look at just the psychological operations that I think are part of the Russian repertoire, it's obviously something that people are concluding. And at the end of the day, I think what they've been able to do is send a message of their capabilities and letting people know that cyber will be an important element to any physical conflict.
Yeah, I mean, this is so interesting. I mean, how much damage do you think a cyber war could do to Ukraine or any other country for that matter?
Well, you have to look at the kinetic piece, the physical piece of what can be done, and I think there's a pretty good blueprint, certainly in the Ukraine, as I mentioned, 2015, knocking out the electrical grid. But if we look at what happened yesterday, disrupting banks, sending fake ATM messages out in terms of, you know, ATMs not working, there is a big psychological element aside from just the physical piece. And I think one of the areas that probably is not getting enough attention are things like deep fake videos, which will even be part of the psychological operations. What does it all mean when you put all of these techniques together? Again, part of the whole cyber umbrella, but not only disrupting physical operations, not only disrupting perhaps the psychology of what, you know, the people of Ukraine, but then also combining that with perhaps some deep fake videos. And it becomes very concerning, obviously, as this unfolds.
CrowdStrike actually just issued their sort of brand new annual threat report for 2022, which showed, among other things, an 82% increase in ransomware-related data leaks in 2021. 82% increase. Why the rapid rise, do you think?
Well, we have to break that down a bit. So when we think about ransomware, and most people are familiar or have heard of it, it's basically malware that encrypts critical files on your computer. And over the last couple of years, corporations and even individuals have gotten a bit better in terms of backing up that data. And if there's an encryption event that happens, they restore the backup. Well, the adversaries, in this particular case, the e-crime actors, have evolved their techniques to the point where they're actually stealing the data first. So even if you try to restore from backup, they basically leak this information, they weaponize the information, and they put it out on the internet in a slow drip in order to take control of the situation and put more pressure on the victim to actually pay the ransom. And that's what we've seen.
So what does that mean in terms of what larger companies can do to shore up their cyber defenses?
Well, this is really one of the top one or two talking points for any board of directors, any corporation, any entity right now. I can tell you I'm speaking to a lot of CEOs just over the last week, everything that's going on obviously in the geopolitical environment, but in particular ransomware and destructive malware that's out there. So things like critical systems need to be protected and workloads with endpoint security and taking really a zero trust approach, which means that these systems and cloud workloads don't trust anything else. They're armored by themselves, and it's very important to protect them. And it's also important to protect the identity of the users who are logging into those systems. And we call this out in the report, the identity of users, normal users or system admin users are being abused to get into these systems and then move laterally across the network, plant ransomware, and then detonate it and leak that data.
All right, George Kurtz, I press there. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.